All right, so here's our question. Find sine of x, given that you know cosine of x is 3/5 and x is between 180 and 270. Now, we've done questions like this where they give you one trig function and you're supposed to find the other one. The way that we answered it was by drawing a triangle, right? And that's a really good way. There's three ways that I can think of to answer these. But we haven't looked at one that has this little extra constraint right here. And what this is for, this is just to narrow down what quadrant that you're in. Because if you recall, there's actually two places on the unit circle where cosine is equal to negative 3/5. All right, so if we have our little unit circle, just pretend that you can see it. If cosine's negative, I know that I'm in the second or third quadrant. And so maybe this angle right here has a left and right distance of 3/5. Or maybe it's this angle down here that also has this left and right distance being 3/5. Okay, so depending on which one they're talking about, whether it's like this 150-degree looking angle, or maybe it's this angle right here where it's bigger than 180, that's going to determine the sign for our trig function down here. All right, so the first thing we need to do that I recommend you do is decide whether our final answer is going to be positive or negative. Okay, so that's what this is for. Because they tell us that the angle is between 180 and 270, I know that it's in the third quadrant. Okay, that's what this part's for. All right, and because we're in the third quadrant, I know that my answer is going to be negative. All right, my final answer, because we're dealing with the sine function, I know it's going to be negative because I'm in the third quadrant. Okay, now let's get busy. We'll actually find the answer. There's several ways to find it. First way I want to show you is by using that Pythagorean identity. This was one of our three Pythagorean identities. The way you do it is, since you're finding sine, you're just going to plug in the negative 3/5 for the cosine part. And it doesn't matter that it's negative, okay? Because when you square that, it becomes positive. And then you just keep working this thing out, whittling it down, simplifying it until you get a nice answer. So 1 minus 9/25, pretend that this 1 is a 25 over 25. And so that's going to give us the square root of 16/25, which is like the square root of 16 over the square root of 25, which is going to become 4/5. Okay, and keep in mind the answer has to be negative. All right, we knew that our answer had to be negative. So that's one way we could have come up with the answer. The classic way is just to use right triangles, right? I'll go over that one as well, just to refresh you on it. What you do is you build a right triangle where one of the angles has a cosine of 3/5. I'm ignoring the negative part. All right, the hypotenuse is 5, adjacent's 3. If you do a little bit of Pythagorean theorem, you'll see that this is a 4, and then you can do the sine of x. All right, now we know that the sine of x is 4/5. Okay, but it has to be negative. You have to have that the sign to your answer, plus or minus, kind of already ready to go. All right. The other way, which is not as effective, you can't always use it, but it's to use your inverse trig functions. I'll show you how it works. If you do the inverse cosine to this, right, inverse cosine of negative 3/5, okay, it's going to tell you what your angle is. It actually is not this angle, because remember we are in the third quadrant. This is actually a quadrant 2 angle, but just ignore that part. All right. What you do is you find the angle, and then you do sine of that angle. Sine of that last answer. Okay, it's going to give you 0.8. If you math, convert it to a fraction, you get that 4/5. But you just have to know to turn it into a negative when you're all done. Okay. So there's like 3 ways that you can answer little questions like this. It's wild. But I just wanted to show you the Pythagorean identity way there. That's kind of what we're focused on. All right, let's do one more. Sine of the angle is 1/3. Find cosine. Okay. So my little formula that I'm going to use. Okay. Because I have sine and I'm searching for cosine. Okay, it's going to be cosine is equal to the square root of 1 minus sine squared, which is going to be 1/3 squared, like that. All right, whenever we work this out, this is going to give me the sign of our answer. We should stop. We should stop where we're at and figure out whether our answer is going to be positive or negative. All right. We know that sine is positive. Okay, so I know I'm in quadrant 1 or 2, but here it tells me that tangent is negative. Okay, because tangent is negative, I know that I'm in quadrant 2. Okay, so in the end, this means that my final answer will be negative because cosine is negative in that second quadrant. Sorry, let's keep going. Simplify this down a little bit. We get 1 minus 1/3 squared becomes 1/9. All right, 1 minus 1/9 is 8/9. And then, so on this one, you can't just take the square root of the top and bottom evenly. They don't come out clean. I'm just going to leave it as the square root of 8 on top and the square root of 9 or 3 on the bottom. Okay, if you want to, you could simplify that. It'd be 2√2. All right, this is my answer. I just need to add on a negative symbol. Bam. That'd be my answer. Okay. Classic way, if we just built a right triangle. All right, if this was x, the 3 would be the hypotenuse. The 1 would be my opposite side. All right, if you do the Pythagorean theorem, you're going to have to subtract. So you're going to get the square root of 8. That's where that number's coming from. And now you can see that the cosine of that angle is √8/3. But this is where the calculator fails, okay? If you do the sine inverse of 1/3, okay, this is going to tell us what our x is. This is going to tell us our angle. Normally we would do cosine of this answer, cosine of my last answer. But we can't do that thing like we did last time where we were able to turn it into a fraction, okay? And that's because our answer is not a rational number, right? It can't be turned back into a fraction, right? It's not rational. But if you test this out, like if you do square root of 8 divided by 3, you'll see that they're the same numbers, okay? So it gives you your answer, but it gives it to you in decimal form. It's the only problem. All right, that's it.